Hey, everybody, this is Pastor Vern with your daily update. Today is April 21st. It's a Tuesday of 2020. One more day closer to being together again. We don't know when that date's going to be that we're going to be together again, but we're looking forward to that. And as we do come together again in whatever time period that is, I'm going to continue to put out some information about what that means. We'll have some restrictions for a while, and that's okay because we want to keep everybody safe. But we're hopeful that we're heading in that direction. I have got a few prayer requests recently that I would lift up to you as the prayer warriors of our congregations. Some of them I've put out on already, but I would like to lift up a woman who has the COVID virus, who has some connections to one of our churches in our parish, and she needs your prayers. I'd also lift up a family who had a young man who was killed in an accident. Young man with a couple infant children. That we want to lift that family up. And also, we have a person who is connected to our parish that works as an EMT, a volunteer in one of the small towns, who answered a call for what they didn't know was a COVID patient at the time, have gotten exposed. That patient has passed. We need to pray for their family too. But they are in isolation now, and with the concerns of whether they've been infected or not. And so we need to lift those things up as we go through our process of being in prayer in the coming days. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the fruits of the Spirit again. We've got about 4 more of those to go, and then we'll look at some other subject that we can share. We might just freelance for a little while because there's some things I'd like to share with you that about some of the situations we've been under that I think would be helpful. But today we're going to talk about long suffering. Now, nobody likes the idea of that word. I mean, and that's not a common word in our language. We don't normally talk about long suffering in our society today, but it's a biblical term that has to do with actually living out your faith even in difficult times, and that's what we're talking about now. And basically, it has to do with patience. Patience is one of the things that in our world is in short supply generally. You can see that. Just go to places of business. If there's a line, it's kind of an amazing thing that if you have to stand in line for about 10 minutes, you become very anxious. You wonder why there isn't more checkers. You wonder why this is happening, that's happening. What's everybody doing? Even though they may be busy working as quickly as they could, we just have lost this patience in our lives. We live in this fast-paced world where we want to move on to the next thing all the time. And we've kind of pushed ourselves maybe a little more than we need to in some respects because we get tired of just sometimes common courtesy that comes with patience. I'm going to share with you today from Ephesians, the 4th chapter. It says, "As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bonds of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and one Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all." Yeah, this long suffering comes partly in the scriptures because our forebears and our ancestors in the faith did suffer quite drastically sometimes for their faith, and we do in some ways, and that's what our patience come from, is that God works in a much slower, determined fashion than we do. We're ready to move on. God has a long-term plan. And even though sometimes we wonder what God's thinking, what he's doing, what he's up to, we see, as we look back into history, we see that God always has this plan for his people. and that we have come to this point through that process. Now, we who live today's world want to push that process along quicker to fit our pace of life, but sometimes it's just not God's will to do it that way. Some of the things that when we talk about patience, especially patience and faith, we talk about being patient under ill will and with no thoughts of retaliation. I mean, boy, I tell you what, that's one to take a handle to in today's world when we see so much retaliation for things that are relatively minor. We have road rage. We have scenarios when people are just at that point where they just can't handle it. They haven't developed that patience through a relationship with the Holy Spirit that many mature Christians have, and they just want to, any little thing that ticks them off, they want to have that person answer for. But what we're really talking about in a lot of it is our patience through the endurance of facing adversity. And right now we're facing adversity, and our patience is wearing thin for a lot of us. And I consider myself a fairly patient person, even though I do have triggers like everybody has that's gonna put me in a different mood. But I wasn't always a very patient person. In fact, as a younger person, I was very impatient. I think maybe I was kind of at the other end of the scale sometimes. And I think that one of those things is the relationship with Christ maturing has helped in that building of the patience, because we tend to learn that over a period of time that maybe things aren't as drastic in the short term as we think they might be. That time is a great way to allow things to play out, sometimes to heal, sometimes to take care of themselves if we just have the patience to do that. And that goes with the second part of what forbearing is it's endurance. We are in a marathon in life, not a sprint. One of the things that someone told me one time is that people do live their lives in a couple different ways. One way is that they run the marathon, that they look far enough ahead to say, okay, I need to save a little bit. I know the course. I know when I'm going to have to really exert myself. I know there'll be times when I can relax a little bit and kind of cruise along, and that's okay. And then the other people run every day like a sprint. And they run every day in a sprint, and then they become frustrated if their times do not keep getting better. And that's one of the things that we need to be concerned about, is that are we running a sprint that frustrates us because we don't seem to be able to get where we want to be? Are we using the marathon method where we see the goal, we know it's out there a long ways yet, or hopefully, and the goal is our salvation, our relationship with Christ, and we're willing to patiently work our way to that goal. And regardless of how long it takes us, it's okay, as long as we keep moving forward and we keep the process rolling. Kind of think about who you are. Who are you? Are you the sprinter or are you the marathon runner? And there's some good things about both. Sometimes we need to have a little bit of both. I've watched some races, cross country races and stuff like that, where sometimes a person gets this great burst of energy at some point, and they to conquer a hill or to come to the finish line in a strong manner, and that's okay. That's a sprint, but the sprint's also contained within the marathon, within the long run. And so think about that. We can be sprinting in our marathon, but we really need to look down the road. All right. Well, thanks everybody for checking in with me this morning. If you have more prayer requests, please let me know. We love you all. We offer blessings to your homes. Stay well. Take care of each other the best you can. Check in with each other. And blessings until next time.